Becoming a caregiver is one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. You'll be opening up your home and your heart to children in real need. There are lots of different ways that you can do that. Sometimes it's caring for a child who's part of your whānau. It might be short-term emergency care or foster care where you welcome a child into your home while more permanent arrangements are worked out. Or it might be making a lifelong commitment to a child in foster care by offering them a home for life. These are not ordinary kids, they will put you to the test. And it isn't a short-term commitment because you need to be in this for the long haul. Becoming a caregiver will also change your own family dynamic. There'll be times when the needs of your own kids will have to come second. But the rewards are enormous. By taking on this responsibility, you'll be taking an active role in turning around the lives of some of this country's most at-risk kids. You'll be making a real difference. So Paul, where do caregivers fit in the system?
Well, they're a huge part of our service. A third of our children we work with are in care. They're the most vulnerable children in New Zealand.
The caregiver is the person who spends most of the time with the child and gets to know them the best. Because caregivers don't have degrees and they don't have a job title, I think sometimes they don't realise just how important they are and how valued they are.
A good caregiver is worth everything to us, really, because obviously a lot of our children who come into care, they need special people. They need people who are willing to open up their hearts and their homes to another child.
So traditionally caregivers have seen as literally kind of just providing bed and breakfast. What's your view on that?
Well, I think things are changing a lot. I think in the past we didn't have a good understanding of what these children needed. I think we didn't have a good understanding of the complexity and the depth of their need, and now we're having a much better understanding of that. So I think we're looking for caregivers who are really committed to working with children, raising children, interested in children.
So what sort of people are you looking for?
A wide range of people. I think we have caregivers from all walks of life. So there's not one type of person who's ideal for this.
That you need to have a good deal of self-awareness. You need to know what presses your own buttons, because some foster parents will get really thrown by a kid that's foul-mouthed and will swear every second word. Some foster parents will get thrown by kids that pinch everything that's not nailed down. And some parents will get really upset by kids who are totally disobedient or don't have ears in their head and can't actually hear when you're speaking to them. So it really depends, and you have to know what it is you can stand and what you can't. And if you do get some little thing you can't stand, like kids being absolutely rebellious, you need to go and get some help if you really want to get on with the job.
When I've interviewed people who've applied to be caregivers, they often have a misconception that we need perfect families, perfectly behaved children, perfect parents, the house is perfect, and we don't. We need real people who have children that misbehave, who have family events that happen, who have ups and downs and the plumbing fails and they have to solve a problem. We need people who are good everyday folk.
So if people are thinking about becoming caregivers, what are the things they really need to think about?
Because this is a family thing you do. It's not just a mum and dad thing. People think, oh, well, our kids will rumble along. But I think you have to look at your own kids, at their own strengths, at their vulnerabilities before you launch into this thing. Because research tells us that one of the major reasons that placements break down is because of the foster family's own kids not being able to take the stress of having a traumatised kid in the family.
Well, the first thing we do with caregivers in the recruitment process is do some assessment of them and some training. So that's about understanding their skills, their motivations, and it's a chance for them to explore what caregiving really means. If caregivers progress through that and they're confident and sure they want to do this work, then we would offer them some training around child development, child protection, and some of the core tasks around caregiving. Caregivers then would get an ongoing allowance to help them look after children, financial allowance. They would get visits from a social worker who would help them manage any caring issues, whether they're practical issues or or relational issues or behaviour issues, and also link caregivers into the right supports as and when that's needed.
If caregivers are really struggling with a particular young person and they think, I can't do this anymore, I just want to give up, what should they do?
Well, the first thing we would say is, talk to your social worker, and they will say, thank you for telling us. Don't struggle on. The care of these children is difficult. Some of these kids come with real problems, so we under no illusions that it's a really hard job sometimes. Incredibly rewarding when it goes well, but hard sometimes. So we want caregivers to tell us if they're stressed or they're having difficulty, so we can try and help sort it out with them.
What are some of the things that people need to weigh up when they're thinking about becoming a caregiver?
Change of life. Life won't be the same when you become a caregiver. You're making in a way, a new direction in terms of life. You are taking on a big responsibility, bringing into your own home a child often with high needs, complex needs. They may be wary or anxious. They may not trust adults because they've been abused in the past or been treated badly in the past. And they'll need your time, your attention, your care, your patience, your calmness, your love, if they're to settle and start to feel safe again. Being a caregiver takes a lot of emotional energy. You'll start to learn more and more about the child. Some of that will be heartbreaking to you. Some of that will be inspiring to you when you see how the child develops and grows and starts to feel a sense of confidence or security. All of that will take your time, your effort, your energy. It will change your life. We hope in a really good way, because when it works well, it's amazing. When I meet caregivers and they talk about the kids that they've raised, or they're still hearing from kids that they've raised as they grow into adulthood, you can see the pride and the joy that they get from that, because that's really something. That's really something.
I always think about the fact that a good caregiver can really make a difference in a child's life, even for a short time, and just have an impact. And they might not stay with them for a long time, but the experience will not be forgotten by that child.
They have a good awareness of themselves and their families, where they're at the moment, and what they can offer as caregivers. They're consistent in how they manage their children and their relationships. They're fun, they have humour, they are problem solvers. They can work out what to do next, and they can usually do it quite calmly. They are not rescuers. Social workers and caregivers cannot be rescuers. We cannot change what's happened to a child, but we can help them through the next phase of their life.
Are there happy endings within the caregiving system?
There are. There's lots of happy endings. Children, for transitional caregivers that do short or medium-term care, say for 3 to 12 months, they often don't see those happy endings because the children have gone back home or moved on to a permanent placement with a home for life caregiver. So you might not see that happy ending, but they happen because what you did was you were there for that child at their time of need, and you helped them get through that time. We have home for life caregivers where the children become a part of the family. Long term, you look at how that child has totally integrated into that family and become part of it. And the family have integrated into that child's life. And it's wonderful.
Well, I think they get a sense of giving back to society. Particularly if they understand that these are very vulnerable children who haven't had a fair start in life. They may have had some fairly bad treatment in terms of abuse, and so it's one way of giving back to society and giving back to that individual child. Often they're people who have that real sort of passion about young people who are in vulnerable situations and want to make a difference for those kids.
The payoffs are when you get a hug, the first hug, voluntary hug, from a kid who's really attachment disorder and has been going at you like that, is amazing. Those are the rewards. It certainly isn't the money.
So if someone's thinking about becoming a caregiver, but they're not sure if it's right for them, they're kind of thinking, maybe it is, maybe I could do that. What's the best way forward?
There's nothing wrong with that. It's a perfectly natural human reaction. I think what we'd do is we would work through some scenarios in training with caregivers. So we wouldn't hide things from people. We would show people honestly the types of problems that they're experiencing in terms of caregiving, or the types of problems that kids come with to placements. So there'll be an honesty about that, so people have a real sense of it. I would say talk to your friends, talk to your family, have a genuine think about it, meet other caregivers and talk to them honestly about what the experience is like. Don't rush into the decision if you're not sure. You know, this is the most important thing you can do in life, I think, is to try and raise children successfully, because they're our future generation. Some of these kids are really vulnerable. So what we can give these kids is profound. If we do it well, it's really profound.